Now, doctor, in the journey of parenthood, at what stage can they can consider adopting?
I think rightly you broke it into a break, and then we are going into another path. How do we become parent? So adoption is something where I would say that this is a gift for a child. In a surrogate, we discussed of how somebody is gifting a child to the intending couple. In adoption, it is you are gifting a child a new family where this child cannot be brought up by their biological parent. So adoption and surrogacy are two different pathways to becoming a parent. Here surrogacy, you saw Jogara sir mentioned so many laws and very stringent laws, where how initially we have seen a lot of celebrities going through surrogacy because it's just that they are busy and they'll not be able to do it, or they're not able to carry on a pregnancy, so they chose. Those things are all cut now because of the law in 2021 which has come in, and it's become very stringent. Adoption is not something like that, where any person who is with a goodwill to adopt a child who cannot be brought up by their biological parent can go through an adoption. Of course, we do have regulations, we have a lot of laws which needs to be followed, and how well the adopting parent will be taking care, how well the person who is adopting, because here there only a woman can take care of an adoption or go through the adoption process, and a single man cannot go through the adoption process. So I'm sure sir is going to throw more light on what are the legal implications going to be there. So this is the difference between surrogacy and adoption.
Doctor, before that, can any parent, intended parent, choose the child, or even during surrogacy, can they choose the surrogate mother?
No, not really. This is why I said brought up the example of a celebrities in the past. So now a surrogate will be chosen or permitted only if the intending couple have a medical disorder. So the clinician has to certify, and these are all the certifications which has to be processed, documented and submitted to the legal forum to be approved that she is going to get a surrogate and go through the process. So there should be a lot of medical conditions. So either they have an absent uterus. We have a lot of Mullerian anomalies where the lady does not have a uterus at all to continue or to become pregnant, or they have cardiac issues. We've had a lot of examples in the past where there has been a couple who conceived naturally, and in the 5th month of her pregnancy she ended up with severe cardiac issues, almost near death situation for that girl. So she had to go through a termination. So what is her future? Now she's really wanting, this couple really wants to have a baby. She cannot go through because she's already gone through a near death situation. So for her, surrogacy is intended. Now a lady, I have patients with Mullerian anomalies, like I mentioned, no uterus. So how would she become? So we do an IVF for her, and once this embryo is formed, so we choose a surrogate and we go for surrogacy for her. We have a lot of PCO patients where the endometrium lining, irrespective of umpty number of procedures done and the lining is not going to get better, they are going to go through a surrogacy. So for a surrogacy, you need a medical certification that this lady cannot born a child by herself. Then she goes through a surrogacy. Adoption is a good intention that you have to adopt a child who do not have a biological parent who is taking care of them, and this is the difference between surrogacy and adoption.
Doctor, what are the legalities associated with adoption for both parents as well as the child?
To my understanding, adoption is the significant time-tested process. Datta Homa is the ceremony that is conducted to facilitate adoption of a child between two parents or families. In fact, just to mention about the medicine and its advancements, there are two miracles considered to be in the domain of modern medicine, allopathy. The two miracles are, one is IVF, second one is transplantation surgery. In the context of IVF, I think we have come a long way in terms of protecting the interests of not only the process leading to surrogacy, but also protecting the needs of the intended couple and the surrogate mother. But what is the difference between these two? Both are pathways leading to parenthood only. But there is a very significant difference, that is the genetic linkage. When it comes to surrogacy, which many people opt for obvious reasons, is that of genetic linkage. But in the case of adoption, I think socially, culturally, economically, there may be a kind of difference or difference. I think that is something. Unless the large-hearted, childless couple come forward, otherwise adoption may not have any kind of reality. But that does not mean in India we didn't believe in adoption. No, the Hindu Maintenance and Adoptions Act, HAMA, 1956 was the first legislation which recognized adoption as a legal valid process, but only applicable to Hindus, Buddhists and Sikhs. That's the. But there is one more legislation which recently, 2015, Juvenile Justice Act, particularly 2022 adoption regulations. These are the two legislations which govern the subject matter of adoption. Please remember, Juvenile Justice Act is applicable to any Indian, even OCI, NRI, you name anybody. It doesn't have a specific either inclusion or exclusion as to any religion. Anybody can do it. However, provides for a very detailed procedures, etc., etc. This is how the legal framework which governs and protects the interest of not only the adopted child but both the families.
So now how are the issues like child's past and its health conditions and all legally protected, Doctor?
To begin with, Hindu Maintenance and Adoption Act belongs to very old model, in the sense more of focusing on a ceremonial observance. However, the Juvenile Justice Act, particularly Adoption Regulation 2022, reflects the current context and experience. Adoption, I am sure every one of us we are aware, not only provided a home to the child, but also subjected the child to various nefarious criminal activities, including trafficking, etc. Not only nationally, internationally. That is the reason why the law, the parliamentarians, the courts, they have come down heavily, saying that there is a need to protect. India should not become a hub of taking away children from our soil. I think that's one sad part where for everything the criminal activity is associated. Adoption is no exception. Therefore, Juvenile Justice Act, in the light of reflecting contextual experiences, provided stringent measures. For example, the health status of the child and the family background, and most importantly, the parents who are adopting the child, their background, etc., they are to be kept very, very confidential, number one. Even though the authorities, SARA and CARA, CARA, Central Adoption Regulatory Agency, State Adoption Regulatory Agency, both the agencies with welfare boards, etc., those who are dealing with adoption, all the adoption related records must be kept confidential. It is only because in this country anything can lead to stigmatization, either economic background or a caste or some other etc. Therefore, confidentiality is something very important. The provisions provide for it.
Even the adoptive parents will have no clue about the child's background.
If they want, they will have only restricted information about the family. Because
just restricted information as in health conditions or about background?
Health condition, if they want, they will know, etc. And the child can also be subjected to health screening, etc. I am saying in many cases, the pool of children who are available for adoption, many a time the child could be an orphan, or the child could be an abandoned child from a family. Then whereabouts information, etc., for the agency, that is the reason why it is restricted. However, with the available information, the parents can be identified. For example, I mean, generally I am saying, I am not castigating or judgmental about others. Suppose parents are alive, but the child is given for adoption, either to help somebody within the family or the economic condition of the family where they have other children whose interest they want to. In these circumstances, the parent's background, etc., is possible to access. But otherwise, if the child is an orphan, we may not be. I think that. law balances the interest, etc.
What are the ways and methods to, because generally adoption is a very long process. Is there a very faster method that you can adopt to for adoption?
Unfortunately, I don't want to be critical, but I wanted to be critical about the practice that takes place. The way the law has come down heavily on illegal, nefarious adoption practices, I think it is in the interest of the community, no doubt about it. But on the other hand, while laying such emphasis, the procedures have been made so complex and cumbersome, the delay that comes in literally changes the mind of the people who want to go for adoption. I think the kind of bureaucracy, the kind of paper writing, the kind of submission, in my opinion, that requires a clear audit and look into, so that I don't think in this country everybody should go for IVF. No, that's not. There are many people who say, no, IVF I may not afford or I don't want, because I want to be a parent to a child who has no parents. I think that is something required to be streamlined, strengthened. I am sure we will be able to do that, but that requires a clear audit. That is the, in my own family members, couple of people, they asked me about the adoption process. When I mentioned about this is the process, first thing they have asked, how many years we have to wait. I think that shows the kind of thing. Having said, I am not saying such kind of law is not required. It is required, but I think we need to cut the corners, etc., facilitate, but with the safeguards built in. If we can do that, I think adoption will and should become a viable alternative to childless couple.
But what are the current guidelines, timings, time frame for the adoption?
Time frame, it takes roughly around 18 months to 24 months. In fact, in some places it is much more than that.
Okay. Can a parent choose the child here?
Oh, of course, there is a possibility. In fact, for example, the JJ amended rules, etc., they provide for very interesting. For example, I wanted to adopt a child. The agency is entitled to get to know about me, my family, my other children, if any, what is the kind of background, what do I do, what kind of environment I provide to the child, all that information. Similarly, after adoption, there is a particular 6-month study report where they look into how the child is being treated, etc. There may be a possibility child may not adjust or parents may not be able to handle, etc. In such a case, for an interim custody, child can be referred to a similar socio-cultural background, etc., can be kept. I think JJ Act, particularly Adoption Regulation 2022, provided a very detailed approaches considering the best interest of the child.
Okay. So, doctor, are there any changes, recent changes in the adoption or surrogacy laws that people should be aware of?
I think magistrate courts have been empowered to pass adoption orders. It is something a very important procedure. No doubt this also entails delay, but I think it is more authentic and nobody will be able to challenge the process, etc. And that is in the best interest of not only the family giving adoption, but also the family who is taking in adoption and the child in question. I think that's.
Okay. Have you faced in something like that in your work?
In fact, let me share something. I am bound by confidentiality as a lawyer and a law professor. In the context of surrogacy, generally the problem comes from the spouse. Wife agrees, submits and complies with all the things, etc. And wife knows there is no scope for commercial, but husband comes and chases intended parents. Either because he is alcoholic or because he wanted some more money, and he says everything must be unofficial, and accordingly intended parents are literally exploited in such situations. They do not know whether to give money or not, or he may even threaten, no, I will ensure that the wife doesn't get good nutrition, these, that. I think these are all ethical issues.
But what do they do in such cases?
Very honestly, the law does not provide, but definitely I think a complaint can be filed or police protection can be sought, etc., etc. But having said, all that leads to the discord between surrogate mother and her spouse. That is something we don't want.
Correct.
But unfortunately, our social milieu, this is one such kind of thing. when it comes to adoption, my challenge was the person who was subjected to adoption, after attaining 18 years, he wanted to challenge adoption. That was something very peculiar situation we faced.
Okay.
He felt that adoption was not in the interest of the child, but both families agreed together, they have done, etc., etc. But we did counsel and advise him to undertake a pathway of conciliation, and accordingly it has been followed.
Okay.
Luckily, did not lead to any court of law or something.
Doctor, have you faced any ethical concerns regarding surrogacy or adoption?
I think it's a very important but very difficult question, I would say, before your conclusion. See, like Sir mentioned, we are talking about two pathways to parenthood. One is an IVF and one is an adoption. I don't know which one is easier or which one is easier done or which one is easier taken forward for. So coming to a surrogacy, here the couple is going through an IVF, and now as per the latest regulations in 2024, we can take a third party donor. That is, either the husband has a semen problem or the wife has not got good quality of eggs, that's the oocytes, then they can take a third party. So the surrogate cannot have her gene being put in or used. So it is a intending couple, or even if the egg is not good, we cannot use a surrogate mother. So we are going to get a oocyte donor, that's the egg donor, take the husband's sperm, make the embryo and then put it for a surrogate. Yes, definitely it's a long process and the woman has to go through. And we've also seen a lot of disharmony in the family or the husband of the surrogate mother. This is why I said these surrogates are either known to the intending couple that they have gone, could be a relative, non-relative who's doing. So the intending couple chooses how do they want to take care of the surrogate mother who's helping them to go through the parency, I would say. So either do they keep them back with themselves, or do they do regular visits? How are they compensated, and getting a good nutrition check is all very important. Coming to the adoption per se, like here I said, we are gifting the child a parent or a new family. Here the problem is they are not genetically related. So how much extent do you want to go through? We have couple who says once they understand either they do have a bad oocyte quality, bad eggs, and it's very difficult for them to conceive, or the sperms are bad and they cannot become a father. So some people insist and they go through an IUI process, IVF process, ICSI process, donors, everything, and then they decide that we are done, we are not going to go through this anymore, so they go for an adoption. And on the other scenario, we have couple who says, okay, is it difficult for us? It's okay, we are open to going for adoptions. And the other part about adoption is the keenness or the joy to gift the child. So there are a lot of couple who voluntarily want to go for an adoption irrespective whether they have a fertility issue or not. I agree that the adoption process, like sir already mentioned, it could be anywhere between 18 to 24 months and sometimes as close as 3 years. But then here again the process is very stringent and it is maintained where the intending couple or the woman applies that she needs to go for an adoption. So there are regulatory checks done on the couple or the woman who is going in for an adoption as well. And you asked a question in between, do they share the background? Here basically whatever the the adoption center or the orphanage which is taking care, whatever information they have about a child, could be either some mental retardation, sometimes it could be genetic disorders or any illness the child is suffering from, or if they have details of the parents, all those information whatever those people have will be shared with the parent who are seeking for adoption. Once this is registered, there are regular checks done to the couple as well to see are they good enough, are they emotionally ready to go through this, and are they financially also good enough to support this child who is coming into the family, and how would they be taking care of the child. And once the process comes through, which is definitely a long journey, the couple also gets a choice to choose. When they are filling the form itself, they get to know are they choosing a female child or are they wanting the boy child, and they are given choices, and any particular descriptions needs to be done when you are filling in the form. And once the child gets through, which could be taking as close as 2 years, they give options. If they reject, or for whatever reasons they don't like it, they get 3 options, more than 3 options, they go back to the list, and again they're waiting, fame is 2 years. So these are the things that a couple wanting to have a child needs to have a lot of patience, because it's a long process of 2 to 3 years, I would say. And once the child comes in, again they're under supervision for as close as 6 months to 2 years to make sure that these couple are taking care of the child very well. So it's a choice that you make. Do you want to voluntarily go for adoption first, or do you go through the fertility treatment and then do it, or do you want to do both? I've had clinical situations where the couple have tried everything, gone through a process of IUI, meticulously done even IVF, and failed, and they decide to go for an adoption. I've had 2 couples, in fact, that you understood that it's 2 to 3 years of journey. They've had this new child come into their family, and over years of 3 or 4 years, I think they've conceived naturally. I think the new child bring in, because fertility issues are so much stress related, and I think this relieves them that they are a parent and naturally they conceive.
Yeah, I think earlier also adoption was always an option. They would, when a childless couple would be advised to have an adoptive child, and then they would conceive naturally. Yes, doctor.
So, and not only that, but ethical issues when you're talking specifically. Now when we're coming to a surrogate, what happens? Because the couple are getting, because they would have gone through this process, they come back and tell us, doctor, you know, we've already done all the tests that you had done for me for an IVF, and her tests are good. I had a couple, you know, they came in and I said, no, I want to see her myself, though you're bringing in the investigations. I checked her and she had fungal infection all over her body. She's gone through all the investigations which was required, and on the blood parameters, everything, she's through. She's very good. But now when I see that she has severe, intense fungal infection throughout the body, including the vaginal area, her private parts, the genital area, entire body, which the parent wouldn't know, because intending couple wouldn't know because of her close dressing. So what would you do? There's an ethical issue, because she's gone through all the process. Do you reject? And who takes care of her treatment now that we've evaluated? So I made a request to the couple, look, she's volunteered to do all the investigations for you, so kindly help her through the medical service, and then we will look into another surrogate which is important. Now similar situation with an adoption, we have, I know a couple of women, you know, who really wants to adopt because they are not wanting to get married. They don't want to be in a relationship, and they've processed adoptions, and I think that's a wonderful journey that you go through. I already mentioned we have patients with cardiac issues, and where surrogacy is a must. People who do not have uteruses, the only way to have their own progeny or their own genetic material is through surrogacy. If you're not looking for that, definitely adoption is a wonderful choice.
Legally, can single parents adopt a child?
Yes.
I mean, even before getting married?
Yeah. One important thing is, that is one crucial difference between surrogacy and adoption. When it comes to surrogacy, individual male parent who is single, he is not eligible to avail surrogacy. But when it comes to the adoption, subject to age difference, they are entitled to, there is no problem at all. But generally we don't see the kind of encouraging trend of adoption. Many people, particularly before 2021 came to me, there was a rush of surrogacy from various groups, single celebrities, etc. I think that, or depending upon their sexual orientation. That's the difference, and as my style. I just want to say one more observation. Insofar as 2021 Act is concerned, the altruistic surrogacy in an underlying manner communicates that the surrogate mother in a way related to the intended parents. Otherwise, an outsider who doesn't have such relation may not come forward to be a surrogate mother. I think that's the underlying assumption. If that is the case, I am sure many issues with regard to nutrition, accommodation or X, Y, Z will be taken care, because they are one within the family taking cause for particular child, for a childless couple. I think that is something.
I think we've had a very valuable and a very insightful talk about adoption and surrogacy. I hope it definitely helps our viewers. Thank you so much for being on this show, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think that was a very interesting topic we have spoken about. We have more such details at the event itself. Please be there at the event. See you all at the event.